Heartwarming revelation. Orphan girl's barefoot struggle in the forest leads to an unexpected connection with fate. Ellie sprinted through the forest, her bare feet gliding over the cool earth, dodging roots and rocks, laughter echoing in her lungs like music. But there was no one to share it with. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, a warm golden light splashing her skin while shadows danced all around her. She was alone, but somehow not lonely, wrapped in the embrace of nature as the haunting memories of her parents clung tightly to her heart. Life hadn't been easy since they'd been taken from her in that tragic accident. The small Appalachian town where she lived was full of strangers who whispered behind closed doors, "What a shame. Look at that girl, all alone in the world." Ellie felt it every day, the pain like a heavy stone in her chest. Yet the forest, wild and untamed, listened. In its silence, she found solace as she gathered wild berries, their sweet tang tasting like hope, reminding her that life could still blossom even from the darkest moments. The townsfolk were a mix of kindness and indifference. Mrs. Baker always had a warm smile for her, offering leftover food. Mr. Jones would mention her tenacity at the market, yet others scoffed at the idea of a child living without adult supervision. She should have a guardian, they clucked, eyes narrowed with misunderstanding. But Ellie stood her ground, fierce like the bushes she maneuvered through with grace. One day, as Ellie picked mint near the old creek, she stumbled upon Mr. Thompson, an elderly war veteran. His presence was a sturdy tree in her stormy life. "I'm you a brave one," he said, surprising her. He became her mentor, teaching her how to hunt and gather, passing down age-old wisdom like a sacred inheritance. Together, they forged a bond, two lost souls finding strength in shared stories of pain and resilience that left Ellie feeling whole for the first time since losing her family. As the annual harvest festival approached, excitement crackled in the air. Ellie hatched a plan to enter her homemade preserves, finally preparing to showcase her skills and her heart's essence. She envisioned their rich flavor bringing smiles, a connection to the community she so desperately wanted. But chaos erupted on that bright festival morning. Weather-worn tents collapsed and townsfolk argued, tension rising like a storm cloud. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ellie felt the weight of their anger pressing down on her like a blanket. Heart racing, she stepped forward, urgency bubbling within. "Everyone," she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "We can fix this if we come together. Let us show what we've all been growing our strength." Gasps filled the air as the crowd paused, curiosity mixed with disbelief. She stood there, filled with anticipation and a faint spark of fear hovering around her. The stirring emotions nearly overwhelmed her. Just as she prepared to inspire unity, a familiar silhouette stepped toward her from the crowd, a figure that made her heart leap and shatter simultaneously. This could change everything. Ellie's heart thudded in her chest as she recognized the figure emerging from the mass of people. It was Jonah, a boy from the town she remembered from school days now far behind her. He was handsome, with bright eyes that sparkled with the same energy that once ignited their youthful adventures. But when the accident left her alone, Jonah drifted away, like many others, his laughter fading from her life. "Ellie," Jonah called, pushing through the crowd. His voice wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, even as apprehension tightrope walked her senses. "Jonah?" She felt a surge of joy mixed with confusion. Why was he here now after all this time? Her breath caught, memories of shared secrets and whispered dreams flooding her mind. They used to explore the woods together before life grew heavy with loss and silence. He reached her, a wide grin on his face, but his eyes held a seriousness that made her stomach churn. "I heard there was a big mess going on. I came to help." His gaze shifted to the crabby townsfolk, and the tension thick enough to slice. "What is going on?" Ellie glanced back at the chaos, a gathering storm of frustration and disarray. They forgot what this festival means. It's not just about preserves. It's about us coming together. She felt her conviction growing stronger, fueled by Jonah's sudden presence. Jonah nodded, a spark in his eyes. Then let us give them a reason to remember. He took her hand, a grounding force that sent warmth racing through her. Ellie felt emboldened, light spurred by their connection. We need to unite them. Remind them that we're a community, she said, her voice rising with newfound determination. We can turn this around. The sound of their united voices fused, drawing attention from the scattered townsfolk. Some were still grumbling, but others perked up, curious eyes meeting theirs. It was a start, a crack in the cloud that hovered above the festival. Let us show them what we can do, Jonah shouted, and Ellie reveled in the rush of energy that coursed through the crowd like a summer storm gathering strength. She watched as hesitant smiles crept onto faces she had only seen frowning moments before. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, Mrs. Baker raised her voice. Ellie, Jonah, you're right. We need to work together. Her support rippled through the throng, igniting flickers of hope. People began to stir, inspiration weaving through the tension like wildflowers breaking through asphalt. Come on, everyone. Let us set up the tables, share what we've each grown, and create something beautiful. An open potluck, a symbol of our strength. The words spilled from Ellie's mouth before she could overthink them, but they felt right true like the pulse of the woods on a spring morning. The energy shifted, excitement and camaraderie buzzing through the crowd. They moved as one unit, first small hesitant steps followed by a roar of laughter as old friends and new allies worked together, moving the broken bits of tents and clearing areas for food. As Ellie and Jonah set up their own table, she caught his eye and smiled. You always knew how to rally people. Maybe we both did, he replied softly, an understanding shared in the depths of their gaze. For a moment, Ellie felt lighter, buoyed by the possibility that their connection could breathe life back into the town. But just then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted something, a flash of movement near the woods that caught her off guard. It was subtle but potent, like the rustle of an untold story waiting to unfold. What was that? She murmured, heart quickening. She was drawn to the edge of the forest, a pull she had felt many times before. What lay in the shadows? As the festival buzzed behind her, Ellie stood at the brink, uncertainty swirling with anticipation. Something was about to change. Would she dare step into the unknown again, or let it slip through her fingers like grains of sand? Ellie felt the energy of the festival swirling behind her, a joyous cacophony of laughter and chatter. But her heart thudded for an entirely different reason now. The shadowy figure in the woods tugged at her thoughts, a whisper of adventure that beckoned her forward. It was familiar, a thread of nostalgia pulling her towards something she had long kept buried. Ellie, where are you going? Jonah's voice broke through the haze of her curiosity. She turned to him, uncertainty plastered across her face. I just need to see, she replied, her voice shaky yet resolute. Jonah stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her arm. Wait, do you want to go alone? His concern flickered in his eyes, a testament to the bond they still shared despite the years apart. Ellie weighed her options. The festival was rekindling a sense of community, but something in her gut told her that whatever was hidden in those woods needed attention. I think I have to go, she finally said. There's something they're calling me. For a heartbeat, Jonah hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I'll come with you. His support surged through her like sunshine breaking through clouds. Together, they stepped away from the warmth of the crowd, venturing toward the tree line, where shadows danced with possibilities waiting to be discovered. The forest felt alive, its whispers entwined with the rustling leaves and the distant sounds of the festival fading behind them. The light grew dimmer, but Ellie felt a twist of excitement in her belly. It was as if they were stepping into a story half remembered, one colored with both fear and hope. Ellie, Jonah said softly, breaking the silence. What do you think we'll find? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe something we lost? Her breath hitched as they walked deeper. The trees arching overhead felt like guardians of secrets, and she half expected them to speak at any moment. Suddenly, they broke through a thicket and stumbled upon a clearing. There was what had caught her eye. A wooden sign lay forgotten against a gnarled tree, half covered in vines. The old friendship spot. Behind it, Ellie saw the remnants of their childhood hideaway, a little dugout with faded carvings of their names scratched into the bark. Her heart skipped a beat, memories flooding back. This was where they had shared their wildest dreams, where laughter echoed and worries melted into the sound of cicadas. Jonah, we used to come here. Remember? Of course, he grinned, stepping closer, his eyes wide with nostalgia. We thought the world was ours. But as he spoke, Ellie noticed a shadow cross his face, a fleeting moment of hesitation. Do you think this place, is it still ours? She whispered, half afraid of the answer. Jonah's smile faded as he took a breath, his voice thick with unspoken fears. Maybe it can be again. There was something deeper in that comment, something they both sensed but didn't yet understand. Just then, a sound startled them. It was a rustle, deeper in the woods, causing the leaves to shudder. They froze, eyes wide. A silhouette moved slowly between the trees, a figure emerging from the shadows. Ellie's heart raced. What is happening? She said, fear creeping into her tone. Had they entered a forgotten nightmare? Jonah squeezed her hand tight. Stay close. Whatever it is, we face it together. But as the figure stepped into the clear light, Ellie's breath caught, because what they discovered was far from what they expected, and it threatened to unravel everything she believed about the past and her place in this world. What was this revelation? Would it shatter the renewed hope she had just begun to grasp? Would it deepen the bond they were relearning? Only time would tell, but one thing was clear. This was just the beginning. The figure emerged slowly, pulling itself free from the shadows like a ghost trudging back from the brink of oblivion. Ellie squinted, the fading light not quite revealing what they had stumbled upon. But as it stepped into the clearing, heartbeats quickened and time stretched tight as a bowstring. Ellie felt Jonah's hand tighten around hers, their connection a lifeline in this moment of uncertainty. And then, her breath caught as recognition washed over her. The person standing before them wasn't just any figure from a story long tucked away. It was their childhood friend, Amy. Ellie? Jonah? Amy's voice cracked, disbelief shimmering in her eyes. Those same blue eyes that once glimmered with laughter now glistened with something darker, a narrative they had all tried to leave behind. Amy. The name slipped from Ellie's lips, raw with emotion. Every childhood summer they spent together resurfaced. The laughter, the silly games, the dreams spun beneath stars. But now, the weight of years had hardened those memories, twisting them into something potent and bittersweet. How? Jonah stammered, nearly stumbling as he stepped forward. Ellie felt an electric tingle of fear and hope coursing through her, wrestling for dominance within her chest. I came back, Amy said, her voice gaining strength with each word. After everything, I thought it was time. She paused, her throat working hard to swallow the lump of pain lodged there. I found my way back to this place. Ellie's heart lurched. This was the girl they'd lost. The one who vanished with no explanation, leaving a massive gap in both their lives. We thought you were gone forever, she whispered, barely able to meet Amy's gaze. I was, Amy replied, sudden tears brimming in her eyes. But I had to find myself again. I've been lost for so long. I didn't even know I was searching for you. The confession hung in the air, heavy and full of unwrapped scars. An avalanche of emotions burst within Ellie: joy, sadness, guilt. They had shared everything once, entwined like vines on an old oak. You should have told us. We never stopped thinking about you, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to come back. I was afraid you wouldn't want me anymore. Amy's voice faltered, and Ellie felt that familial bond tug at her strongly. It was as if the years apart dissolved in an instant, laying bare the raw longing for connection. But we missed you. We still care. We were ready to rediscover everything. Jonah's voice rang out, fueled by a sincerity that matched Ellie's heart. Amy took a hesitant step forward, eyes darting from one to the other. Can we really go back to how it was? Why not? Ellie breathed, uniting her hope with Jonah's assurance. We're ready to try. We can face anything together. But as they began to embrace a future born from old dreams, the forest stirred once more. The air thickened, and shadows danced with renewed purpose. Just then, from the depths of the trees, another rustle echoed, a deeper, darker sound that filled Ellie with dread. What is that? Jonah asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ellie turned toward that ominous noise, the hope that had braced them suddenly teetering on the edge of uncertainty. They had just started to reconstruct their past, But what if the woods had one more secret left to unveil? Was this reunion a blessing or a prelude to something more terrifying? Only the unfolding night would reveal what lay ahead. Amy's hesitant smile faded as the rustling grew louder, a low growl echoing through the trees like a warning bell. The feeling of warmth that had filled the clearing moments ago was being suffocated by an unseen threat. Ellie stepped forward instinctively, placing herself protectively in front of Amy. She felt Jonah's hand shift to her waist, steadying her. "We shouldn't be here," Amy said, her voice barely a whisper, laced with fear. "Then what do we do?" Jonah asked, straining his ears, trying to gauge the intensity of the sound rippling through the darkening woods. Ellie's heart raced. This wasn't just about finding their friend anymore. They were on a precipice, teetering between the joy of reunion and the darkness lurking in the shadows. "We have to go," she said, her voice firm despite the quivering of her body. "Now." But before they could make a move, the source of the sound emerged from the underbrush. A large black figure, not quite feral, but not entirely human either, stepped into the feeble light. Ellie's breath caught in her throat as she recognized what they were dealing with. "A wolf," she breathed out, trying to assess its demeanor. It was big, larger than any she'd ever seen, and very much malevolent. The beast snarled softly, its eyes burning with a feral intelligence. It seemed to be guarding something in the woods, set firmly in its territory, and evidently annoyed at their presence. Amy's eyes widened. "What do we do?" Panic surged in her voice, the bravado of their earlier conversation eroding as they confronted the reality of their situation. "Stay calm," Jonah said, his voice steady. Ellie could see the resolve in his stance, but she knew they couldn't afford the luxury of underestimating the creature. It was hungry or protective, and either way, they were intruders. The wolf's growling quieted, then it sniffed the air, its gaze shifting between them. Ellie sensed a challenge. It wasn't just an animal guarding its territory, it felt like a test. They had come to reconcile the past, but could they endure this moment together? Maybe we can back away slowly," Ellie suggested. In the same breath, she felt a surge of anger. Why should they run? They'd fought too hard to find Amy, only to be chased away by a wolf. "No, we stand our ground," she said, her heart throbbing in her chest. "Ellie, stop. This isn't the time to be brave." Jonah's voice sliced through her determination. "Maybe it's not bravery," Amy said quietly, stepping next to Ellie with resolve. "Maybe it's survival. We can't let fear take us again." The wolf lunged forward suddenly, snapping its powerful jaws as Ellie's heart leapt. But she wouldn't cower. With every ounce of her being, she stood, locking eyes with the creature. In that moment, Ellie felt a familiar flicker of courage in her gut, like childhood night adventures when they faced shadows with flashlights in their small hands, ready to conquer. She opened her arms wide, ready to embrace whatever fate awaited them, determined that the bond of friendship would prevail over any threat. But as the wolf halted just inches away, its breath hot against her skin, she realized something far more profound was about to unfold. What lay beyond the veil of this fearsome encounter? She prayed it wouldn't snatch away the chance they had to rebuild their lives together. The wolf paused, its heavy breaths fogging in the chill of the evening air. Ellie felt the warmth of its breath against her, and though fear gripped her heart, a strange calm washed over her. The woods seemed to hush, the world narrowing down to just the three of them and this powerful creature that held them captive. With every fiber of her being, Ellie tried to connect with the wolf, to show it they meant no harm. Her memories flashed before her echoes of laughter, exuberant summer days, and the unshakable bond of friendship. She was reminded that they had faced the dark moments together. She could do this. They could do this. "Look at its eyes," Amy whispered, anxiety dripping from her voice. "It's scared too." Jonah shifted again, uncomfortable, but Ellie sensed a deeper understanding settling between them. "What if it's trying to tell us something?" She mused aloud. "What if it's lost, just like us?" The wolf studied them intently, its massive shape holding the ground, yet there was a flicker of hesitation in its posture. Ellie took a step closer, her heart racing with trepidation, but fortified by a burgeoning resolve. "Please," she said softly, voicing the unspoken plea in her heart. "We don't want to hurt you." As if hearing her words, the wolf's growling subsided, replaced by a soft whine. The low sound resonated with a sadness that struck Ellie at her core. This wasn't a wild beast ready to attack. This was a guardian, a creature of the forest that understood their struggle. Ellie, this isn't a good idea, Jonah cautioned. But he didn't move. His blue eyes still locked on the wolf. In a heartbeat, the tension shifted. The wolf took a step back, its piercing gaze studying them carefully, and Ellie felt their hearts beating as one distinct, yet harmonious. It's like it's waiting, Amy suggested, her voice steadying amidst her own fear. Ellie nodded slowly. The wolf wanted them to prove their intentions. Perhaps it was trying to gather them into its fold, a call to witness something sacred. She fought down the fear gripping her throat and made another bold move. Let us tread lightly. Together, she said, echoing the unyielding spirit they had fought to maintain. Step by step, they moved closer, challenging both their fears and the wolf's suspicion. With every careful step, the wolf seemed to recede further into the shadows, as though beckoning them to follow. Ellie held her breath, aware that they were entering a sacred space, one where wounds could be healed and fears can be faced. They needed to trust in the creature, just as they needed to trust each other. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Ellie's eye. Something shimmered in the underbrush just beyond where the wolf had emerged. Intrigued, she stepped closer, and Amy followed. Jonah remained steadfast, his watchful presence grounding their bravery. Look, Amy gasped, crouching down to examine it closely. They discovered nestled among the ferns, a den. A clutch of silver-gray wolf pups, their fur soft and eyes wide with innocence, tumbled over each other, squeaking and nipping playfully. The realization washed over Ellie with shock and delight. This was what the wolf had been guarding. It wasn't he just protecting its territory, but its family. That stark revelation settled. The wolf turned toward its young, its eyes softening. It offered something that had been missing in all their lives, a sense of belonging. But just as hope flooded through them, a sharp sound shattered the moment, a gunshot, echoing through the trees and wrenching the serenity away like a rude awakening. The wolf's head snapped up, growling once more, this time with urgency. No, Jonah shouted, taking a step forward, but Ellie reached for him, her own heart racing as fear returned tenfold. What had they stepped into? The forest quaked with tension, and Ellie grasped Amy's hand tightly, every instinct screaming for them to run, to escape the chaos looming. As the wolf howled, rallying to protect its pups, Ellie knew they were at a turning point. They had to decide, would they flee or stay and face the danger. Together? Ellie, what do we do? Jonah asked, panic rising among the echoes of the forest. In that decisive moment, Ellie felt her pulse quicken once again. The ties of loyalty, the bonds of friendship, and the simple truth that they had come too far to turn back now. All of it coursed through her like electricity. With her heart pounding in rhythm with the dangers encircling them, Ellie took a step forward. Whatever lay ahead would test them like nothing before, but they would face it together. It had to be together. What awaited them in the depths of that forest? The crack of the gunshot lingered, hanging heavy in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash chaos. Ellie's heart hammered in her chest as the wolf let out a furious howl, a sound filled with defiance and sorrow. The urgency in its voice urged Ellie to think fast. Stay with me, she whispered to Amy, squeezing her hand tighter, grounding both of them in this moment of uncertainty. Just behind them, Jonah stood frozen, his expression caught between fear and determination. Ellie, we can't just stand here. Jonah's voice trembled, a sharp contrast to the bravado that usually surrounded him. We need to move. Do we leave the pups? Ellie replied, her voice steady, though doubt gnawed at her. The tiny creatures rolled around, completely unaware of the danger that loomed. Ellie took a deep breath, forcing herself to think. They couldn't abandon the wolf or its family. This was about more than just them. This was a moment where they were interconnected with something larger, something beautiful and fragile. I can't just run, she said, and slowly took another step toward the sound of the wolf. We need to help. We have to protect them. Are you insane? Jonah whispered, incredulity flooding his voice. What can we do against a hunter? But Ellie's eyes were locked onto the wolf, still defending its young, its resolve fierce. She could see the vulnerability in the creature, an echo of the struggles they all shared. This was more than just wildlife. It was a fight for survival. We can distract him, Amy suddenly suggested, her voice shaky but infused with newfound courage. If we can divert the hunter's attention, maybe the wolf can escape with its pups. I've got rocks in my backpack. Jonah was slowly coming around. We can throw them to create noise, maybe get him to look away. Ellie nodded, adrenaline kicking in. On 3. She raised her hand, feeling the thrill of unity amongst them. 1, 2, 3. Without a moment to waste, they scattered in different directions, each picking up stones from the forest floor. The wolf watched them from the corner of its eye, its growling ceasing slightly, perhaps recognizing that these strange creatures were not its enemies. They were allies, however unlikely. Ready? Ellie said, glancing back to Jonah and Amy. They nodded, hearts racing, communicating without words as they steeled themselves for the next steps. On the count of 3, they hurled their stones into the thick underbrush surrounding them, the noise ringing out like thunder. Over here, Ellie shouted, her voice cutting through the fear. She clapped her hands, raising her own voice above the forest's symphony of sounds. The wolf took the cue, leaping toward the direction of the noise, strategically guarding its young with its body as it prepared to protect them from whatever threat approached. For a fleeting moment, Ellie felt a rush of exhilaration. They were making a difference. But then, from the corner of her eye, she caught sight of movement, a figure stepping through the trees, a rifle slung over his shoulder, eyes sharp like a hawk hunting its prey. Ellie felt her breath hitch. This was the hunter. Ellie, Jonah called desperately. His voice was tinged with an urgency, pulling her focus from the oncoming danger. The wolf turned, a tense series of growls emanating from deep within its throat. It wouldn't let the pups be taken, but the hunter had already raised his rifle, aiming it steadily. Go, Amy urged, pulling Ellie back slightly. But Ellie couldn't tear her gaze away from the unfolding scene. Horror mingling with awe, a primal instinct surged within her, telling her to act, to intervene. And at that moment, she took a deep breath, determination igniting within her. They had come together through thick and thin. Now was their time to be brave. As the hunter's finger tightened on the trigger, Ellie's voice rang through the clearing. You'll never take them. Ellie didn't know what would happen next. Would it all fall apart? Would her voice change everything? But she knew one thing for sure: they weren't alone anymore, and they were choosing to stand, to face the danger together. The outcome would mark their lives and the fate of the forest forever. What would Ellie's voice bring into this moment of truth? Would bravery overcome despair? The hunter froze at Ellie's cry, surprise flashing across his face. In that heartbeat, the forest seemed to go still, like everything was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Jonah and Amy stood tense beside her, eyes wide, hearts thudding loudly against their ribs like a drum. What did you say? The hunter called out, voice rough and chilling. Ellie's stomach knotted. She felt small against the looming figure, yet she stepped forward, fueled by a fierce protectiveness. I said, you won't take them. She regretted the challenge the moment it left her lips, but there was no going back now. The wolf, sensing Ellie's resolve, growled louder, stepping closer to its young, creating a barrier. The hunter chuckled darkly, shaking his head as if viewing an absurd spectacle. And what do you think you can do? You're just a kid. He lowered his rifle slightly, but that didn't change the danger. That didn't make Ellie feel safe. You don't have to do this, Ellie shouted, her voice rising again, fighting against the panic threatening to overtake her. They deserve to live. They're just trying to survive. What do you care about some mangy wolves? His lips curved in disdain, but Ellie could see uncertainty flickering in his eyes. They're just beasts. They're not just beasts, Jonah interjected, stepping up beside Ellie, his earlier fear replaced by what looked like righteous anger. They're living creatures, just like us. The hunter regarded them, his gaze flicking from Jonah to Amy, who stood firm despite her trembling hands. For a moment, it seemed like they had made him pause, like maybe the connection they felt to the wolf and its pups was reaching him. But the moment didn't last. He stepped forward, raising the rifle again, a single, hard glint of determination in his eyes. The chill of the situation wrapped around them like a vice. Back off, kid, he warned Ellie, but she refused to yield. I'm not afraid of you, Ellie insisted, though fear gripped her heart. But you should be afraid of what you're doing. There's still good in this world. Killing that wolf won't bring you any joy. Jonah and Amy exchanged glances, but Ellie barely noticed. Instead, she was caught in a wave of emotion, a mix of desperation and hope. She knew they were all in this together, a pack united by purpose. The wolf, still right behind her, seemed to sense the shift as it growled fiercely, daring the hunter to make a move. Then, like a mirror reflecting her own bravery, the young wolf that had hidden behind its mother stepped out, tiny but determined. It squeaked softly, its innocent vulnerability contrasting sharply with the threat of the rifle. Ellie's heart broke at its courage. "See," she whispered. "They're just trying to live, just like us." The hunter faltered, his expression shifting. In that momentary crack of uncertainty, Ellie pushed forward. "Let them go. Make this right." But even as hope flickered, the hunter took a breath, recalibrating his angle. The tension magnified, ready to explode. Suddenly, a rustle echoed through the bushes. All eyes turned. From the dense shadows emerged a giant stag, majestic and commanding, standing protectively across the path as if drawn to this turbulent scene. The hunter's eyes widened. What in the Ellie crowded closer to the wolf, instinct urging her to protect that vulnerable life. The stag stood firm, staring down the hunter, a silent guardian of nature. "What will you do now?" Ellie's heart raced, realizing that perhaps this was a collective moment of defiance. Would the hunter give in, or would he strike out in anger? Would they win this battle not just for the wolves, but for the forest itself? The uneasiness lingered as the hunter hesitated, and Ellie held her breath, waiting for the moment that would decide everything. What happens next could change everything. The tension hung thick in the air, almost suffocating. Ellie couldn't tear her gaze from the hunter as he stood frozen, torn between the rifle aimed at the wolves and the majestic stag blocking his path. It was a standoff unlike anything she had ever imagined. The stag's presence was powerful, its antlers reaching towards the sky like branches of an ancient tree. Ellie felt an unexplainable bond with the creature, as if they were both fighting for the same cause. She wanted to believe that the forest was responding to her plea, that every living thing within its embrace could sense the danger and had come together in solidarity. The hunter shifted, his resolve wavering as he glanced at the stag, then at Ellie. "These beasts threaten livestock," he muttered, trying to regain control of the situation. "They belong in the wild, where they can't hurt anyone. They're part of the wild." Ellie shot back, her voice shaking but firm. "You don't understand. They're not the enemy. They need a chance, just like everyone else." In the silence that followed, Ellie noticed the hunter's stance soften slightly. An instant flicker of doubt crossed his features, giving her a hint of hope. Maybe the human heart wasn't as dark as it seemed. The young wolf took a small step toward the stag, its little frame trembling yet brave. Ellie watched as the wolf's tiny body mirrored the steadfastness of the stag. It was a glimpse of courage that shook Ellie to her core. All at once, she realized that sometimes bravery comes from the smallest of creatures. Then, as if sensing Ellie's rising hope, a sudden rustle echoed through the trees again. Out of the underbrush, another figure emerged, a female deer, eyes wide and frightened. It paused, staring at the hunter with a mix of caution and curiosity. Ellie felt as if the forest was speaking to them, layering on its defenders one by one. "Look," Jonah exclaimed. "It's like they're all coming to protect their own." The hunter's brow furrowed deeper. "This is insane," he murmured, glancing between the wolves, the stag, the deer, and finally back at the three kids. They stood as a united front, defiant and determined. Ellie's heart raced, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Could they really change his mind? Could they truly save the wolves? She stepped closer, tears pooling in her eyes. "Please, don't hurt them. They deserve to be here, just as you do." For a moment, Ellie believed that they could reach him, that he could feel the same connection to nature that she felt coursing through her. The hunter hesitated, so many conflicting emotions battling in his eyes. But before they could really take root, he straightened up, hardening his expression once more. "No," he said, voice steady but laced with uncertainty. "I want to let them go. It's too late." Just like that, he took a step back, readying his aim again. The world blurred around Ellie. A rush of panic gripped her heart. "Wait, don't," she screamed, time stretching like molasses. In that moment of desperation, with everything on the line, something deep within her stirred. She felt a powerful urge to fight for what was right, to protect not just the wolves, but everything that mattered. How could she let this be the end? The young wolf whined softly, nudging closer to its mother while the stag still stood like a beacon, a guardian of hope in the chaos. Without thinking, Ellie took another step forward. What if you faced your fear instead of running from it? Would this challenge reach him somehow? She could only wait as the hunter's breath quickened. The world held its breath, waiting for his next move. Would he stand firm against the tide of innocence and hope, or would he find the courage to change his fate? As he stood there, Ellie felt the weight of all she had to lose. The answers lay just out of reach, shimmering like the glint of sun on leaves. Would he dare to listen? The hunter's grip on the rifle faltered, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The forest seemed to lean in, every creature present holding its breath, just as Ellie was. What if you faced your fear instead of running from it? She had asked, and in that question, something shifted. He glanced at the stag, then the small wolf, and finally back at Ellie. The tension alight in the air vibrated with the weight of unsaid possibilities. Without breaking eye contact with her, the hunter's expression softened, the hardness in his gaze melting away like snow under the warm sun. It was a glimmer of vulnerability, the realization that perhaps he was just as lost as they were, roaming through life searching for meaning, for acceptance. I was taught to believe in survival of the fittest, that this is how it's meant to be, the hunter murmured, confusion lining his brow. But what does it mean to fight for your kind? Do they deserve that? More than anything, Ellie breathed, her heart swelling with determination. They belong with us, just as we belong together. It's not about might, it's about heart. And they have every right to live here, just like you. The words hung in the air, layers of truth resonating through the forest. The wolf behind her let out a low, soft whine, urging its young to stay close. The stag lowered its antlers, standing unwavering, a symbol of strength without aggression. And in that moment, Ellie understood the mirrors of their lives were reflecting one another. She, Jonah, Amy, and the painted creatures that had witnessed their journey. The hunter's breath hitched as if a dam had broken, releasing his tightly held emotions. I've lost so much, he choked out, his voice trembling. I didn't know how to find my way back. Then let us guide each other, Jonah chimed in, stepping forward with newfound conviction, joining Ellie and Amy. There's room for all of us. The hunter blinked, tears welling in his eyes as he lowered the rifle, his defense crumbling like an old wall. I don't know if I can trust myself anymore. I've done terrible things. Ellie stepped closer, extending a tentative hand toward him. It's never too late to change. You can be part of something good. You can protect them instead. The hunter hesitated, looking at the wolves, then at Ellie, her sincere eyes carrying the weight of the universe. You really think I can? He whispered. I do, she said softly. We all do. Then, as if lighting a spark, the wolf stepped out from behind Ellie, inching toward the hunter. It looked up at him, trusting and innocent. The hunter's eyes widened, compassion flooding through him, and he dropped to one knee, lowering himself closer to their shared level. I am so sorry, he murmured to the wolf, tears spilling down his cheeks. I've been afraid for so long, afraid of losing what matters. In that haunting moment, the wolves approached, sniffing the air, their small bodies filled with uncertainty, but also with courage. The young wolf took a tentative step toward the hunter, nuzzling its soft head against his hand, a silent acceptance. Suddenly, the tension broke like a wave crashing against the shore, and Ellie felt the dam of grief and heartache give way to hope. You see? Jonah smiled, his voice laced with awe. We can all belong. The hunter smiled through moistened eyes, finally recognizing the truth buried within him. I'll protect them, I swear it. No more hunting. The forest will be their home, and maybe I deserve a second chance too. Cheers erupted all around the clearing, and Ellie, Jonah, and Amy intertwined their hands in a circle, feeling the warmth of their commitment around them like the embrace of family. The forest breathed with a new life, its energy shifting into something brighter. The wolf stayed close, a symbol of resilience, and as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, golden rays spilled through the branches, each beam a promise of new beginnings. I cannot change the past, the hunter said, his voice steady now, but I can choose to be a guardian instead. Ellie beamed at him, her heart dancing. They had transformed not just a moment, but lives. And as they turned back toward the festival, now filled with laughter and celebration resonating through the trees, the fleeting echoes of their fears grew distant. Together, we'll make it right, she said, feeling the bond they had recreated, stronger than ever. As they made their way back to the festival, hand in hand, they stepped into the bright future ahead, united and unharmed. They were no longer just surviving. They were living through love, family, and a shared belief that together, they could face any challenge, any shadow lurking in the woods. It had all started with a little girl and her simple wish for connection. And here they were, proof that transformation and understanding could turn the world upside down. The faction of loss and solitude had morphed into an embrace of love, a coalition of wanderers finding purpose in each other. And as the sun set behind them, Ellie felt the warmth of belonging shed light upon the darkest corners of her heart. She was home. If you found inspiration in this story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button. It truly helps the algorithm and spreads the positivity. I want to hear from you, so comment your thoughts and feelings about this incredible transformation. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep this journey going.